Okay, well, my speech or my talk is a little bit different, but I did want to start off by stating, first of all, you did make me look old, but how much the tech environment in Toronto has changed over the last 5 or 10 years, even since I've been down in San Francisco for about the last 3 years. It's quite amazing. When I came in here tonight and I realized how many people were here, I was really blown away. But yes, my name is Sally Daub. I currently run a venture fund that I started called Pool Capital. The fund that I primarily focus on deep technology solutions, a lot of hardcore tech, and I'm focusing on industries around healthcare and quantum computing. But prior to that, I myself was an entrepreneur. I started, going to question the judgment on this, a semiconductor business. And I think Alex's statement on that in terms of that being a tough business is an understatement. It's very, very complex in terms of the technology you have to build, the sales cycle, the channel, the distribution, the manufacturing, et cetera. But during that time, we had a lot of success. And what I wanted to share with you tonight was maybe focusing on one of the areas where we had one of the biggest challenges and some of the things that I derived during that period and that I now refer to when I decide to make investments with other early stage companies. So a lot of you might not have heard of Ixis Systems, but we started in 2001. Maybe not the best time to start, and that's another TechTO talk. That was just about the time the bubble was bursting on the tech market. But we focused on building video processors, and some of the technology that we built is kind of fundamental to video over IP today. So think about Netflix, even NVIDIA, their CUDA chips, a lot of the stuff that they do was a lot of the stuff that we fundamentally actually developed and patented through our time at Vixis, which I ran in actually for about 14 years. We were quite successful in that we actually grew our revenue at over 100% year over year, up until the point of 2011, where we were doing 100 million in annual revenue per year. And every top consumer electronics manufacturer at that time was using our components. With that success, we were feeling quite confident. We were in high demand, both in terms of acquisitions, investors. We prepared to do our IPO, and we were targeted to go out in the NASDAQ in 2011, around the April timeframe. And around that time, in March, a very unexpected event happened. A tsunami hit in Japan. And why that was such a big impact for us was the fact of that over 80% of our revenue was derived from that market. That's where we sold all of our components at the time. So what we ended up determining was we were now no longer a $100 million annual revenue company. We are now 35 million annual revenue company over maybe about 2 quarters. So what we had to do at that point was actually deal with a number of issues and a number of things that I now look at companies when I decide to make investments. The first was the capitalization. When you lose that much revenue, you obviously have a cash issue. And even though we'd been highly profitable through that period of time, one of the challenges, and I still think it's a big challenge for a lot of Canadian companies, where we were not capitalized enough. We didn't have enough money to make a mistake. We didn't have enough money to take risks. And over again, I think I see in this environment in Toronto that's consistently an issue. So I look for companies and investors around where I believe the companies are going to be properly capitalized so that you can have a catastrophic event like a national disaster and still have a great team and a great technology and move through that. The second thing that I think we had to deal with automatically was the burn. We're not a $100 million company anymore. We're a $30 million company. So every one of the engineers in my company were indispensable to me at that point. But the reality was we had to make some significant cuts, and we did do them fairly quickly, but we didn't do them fast enough or probably deep enough. And I guess so when I look at entrepreneurs and team members, I look for that decisive capability. It's easy when things are going well to kind of move through them and have the flexibility, but I need a team that when those things happen can sit down and make those decisions very quickly and be able to start to rebuild and move on, because there's going to be difficult challenges for any business. And the third thing that we realized, and we had been working on this for a while, is diversification. Even though we had multiple customers, our dependency on Japan was one of the things that we're highly vulnerable to. And so whether it's customers, jurisdictions, products, the ability to actually show that you have some kind of broad base that you can move through, and you're not vulnerable in one single spot. Could be regulatory, legal, any of those things can actually have dramatic effects on a business. There is a happy ending to this story. Over that period of time, we were able to recapitalize the company. We grew the company again. We diversified into North America, started to bring on new products. Comcast became a large customer, DirecTV, Echo, EchoStar, some infrastructure plays, and we were able to actually exit the company about 2 years later. But those were very, very tough lessons that we learned, and hopefully today, kind of this story gives you guys something to think about as you start to build your own businesses. Thank you.
Questions?
Sorry?
Some questions?
Sorry. So for startups, it's always like a lack of money, and even if there's a VC funded, they don't plan it for the natural disaster and something like that. So what do you suggest in that case for the startups in Toronto? Oh no, hello. Yeah. So I was asking like for startups, is always be a lack of money in start, and even if there's a VC funded, they don't plan it for the natural disaster or something like that. So how do you suggest like?
I don't think you can plan for every natural disaster. I don't. Hopefully that's my point. And I do think there's a lot of things we don't have control over as an entrepreneur. But what I do find is that compared to companies and firms down in the Bay Area, they're funding for those contingency plans, whereas we're funding up here based on getting additional money and grants from governments and getting to the next milestone, and that's it. As opposed to thinking, okay, what do I need to really build this into a massive scale company at each different level, and actually presenting that and doing a proper financing plan. It's not easy to raise money, and I have raised a lot of money, but I don't think the better way to do it is to try to take in less and build a smaller business. That's not what I think is the best way to do it as an investor.
Hi, you're based out of both San Francisco and Toronto. So my question is, for startups who are looking to kind of get more lucrative and grow, and who get really great offers to move to the Bay Area, how do you kind of get retention and get people to stay in Toronto and not have to deal with brain drain?
I mean, I think that's moved back and forth. I think there are a lot of people now more interested in the Toronto ecosystem. Matter of fact, I have a friend who's just moved from San Francisco to start a company in Toronto. I think we need to market ourselves. I think that's the big difference between San Francisco and Toronto is they outmarket us. I don't think they have more technology, more brains, and I think we're getting better at doing that in Toronto. But I think, there's a lot of people who want to be here and want to build businesses. This is where I built my business, and I really enjoy doing it.
One more question.
So I have a question over here, other side. So in terms of morale, so your company essentially got crushed into a third of the size. How did you stop people from quitting and becoming no longer motivated?
Well, this is unfortunate, but we probably at this point wanted them to quit because we had to reduce. I think it's tough, but what you have to realize is when you're a leader, people want you to make decisions. They understand what's going on. The worst thing you can do as a leader is sit here, be bleeding cash, or have people that don't have work to do or whatever, and not be doing anything. I mean, people weren't happy, but most people that left on a good basis, and they understood what happened. And I think once you get that base together, you start to rebuild again. I think people hesitate too long and are too worried about that. You have to move through that. You have to be the leader and step up and then take control.
I lied. We're going to do one more question.
So in terms of rebuilding the company, what did you do differently that helped you to sort of come back really fast, and also just be able to get that new customer base in North America super fast and get your money back again, I guess?
I don't know if we were super fast, but I do think we had a very good base. I mean, we'd already grown to 100 million. I don't know how many companies in this room have done that. That I had an incredible team. And this was a big blow. And what we did is we went back to our roots and started to build again. But what we didn't do was we didn't curl up in a corner. We took it on full force, and we were realistic about the challenges that we had and what we were facing. And I think that that's one area where a lot of companies around the world, you can kid yourself that, things aren't as bad. You can hope things will get better. Hope really doesn't work when you're trying to build a company.
Thank you.
Here now.